2024 was overall a pretty good year for me, all things considered. Had solid semesters academically, got in and out of a relationship, spent the summer relaxing and going out with friends, went to Korea for winter break, and finally made this channel to share my experiences and opinions with y'all. While one of the reasons for making videos was to be more open to others and myself, it's mainly because I wanted to have an outlet to talk about movies, share some that a lot of people may have never heard of, and give recognition to those that deserve it. And what better way to do that than by making a top films list? No one's ever thought of that before. At first, I was worried this was going to be a pretty mediocre year for cinema. After a certain film in March, everything else felt very plain and often just bad. To be fair though, I wasn't really watching many 2024 films. I spent most of the time watching classics, as you can probably tell from my uploads. At the end of the semester, I finally had the time to catch up on films that I've been meaning to watch, and holy shit, I was wrong about this year. What started out as an okay year turned out to be pretty amazing for cinema. Sonic 3 had the most insane dap in film history. The Roundup Punishment was a pretty fun movie with a lot of great choreographed action, but a boring story and an uninspired villain. I thought Inside Out 2 was a solid, inoffensive animated film, one that highlights themes that both children and adults can enjoy, but one that suffers from a lack of creativity and, dare I say, balls. Juror Number 2 was an enjoyable and interesting crime drama until it became a 12 Angry Men copy without fully understanding why that film is so special and perfect. Still a fun film, but a lackluster middle and a laughable ending bring it down considerably. Longlegs is a film I've already talked about, so check that out if you want my extended thoughts on the film. Awesome cinematography, pretty good first half, but boring characters and an awful ending. Eczema had an awesome first half, very atmospheric, very eerie, exactly what you'd expect from South Korea. The second half is kind of where it falls apart though. The moodiness and tone you get from the beginning kind of fades away, which is disappointing. I think I pretty much explained how I feel about Uzumaki in my Letterboxd reviews. Great first episode, but a huge fall off after episode 2. Alien Romulus feels like the best Alien film since Aliens, yet it's still nowhere near that level. While the visuals and sound design are atmospheric and work perfectly for the tone, it suffers from some pretty forgettable characters. Not Andy though. He's a precious little boy. The Wild Robot is the only film that made its way out of the list. While the animation is beautifully done and the themes of motherhood and purpose are something parents can enjoy, Bright Bill's cringe ass and the lazy villain at the end make the film age worse than I would have liked it to. Hundreds of Beavers would be like 1 or 2, but it's 2022 release, not 2024. Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul came out late 2024 in the UK, but I'm not British, so it came out 2025. Lastly, Queer is the only film in my watch list that I couldn't find playing near me, like literally anywhere. By the time I finished writing the script, it finally came out on streaming platforms, but because I'd rather get this video out now, I'll write my thoughts in the comment section instead of putting it in the video. Alright, now it's time for the actual list. Remember when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock and explained it was because love will make you do crazy things? That's Love Lies Bleeding in a nutshell, except instead of Chris Rock getting slapped, he would have been shot on stage. This is a brutal, bloody film, and it's so much fun to watch. The strength of the film lies in its simplicity, telling a basic yet satisfying story about two lovers being entangled in a life of crime, both because of their own stupidity and past life decisions. It does hurt the film slightly with some one-dimensional characters and a lack of a purposeful message, but I can ignore it for the most part. It's engaging, stylish, sexy, the best love story of the year. Adam Pearson is one of few good British people in the world. After an accident at the age of 5, he was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis type 1, which disfigured his face with tumors. These abnormalities unfortunately led him to be harassed by some very rude people, but despite these attacks, he worked hard and fought against these bullies by inspiring others to do better, researching for the BBC, co-hosting a documentary, and of course, acting in films. The thing he's realized is, no matter how you look, who you are and what you represent are much more important. That's exactly what A Different Man aims to discuss, presenting an alternate reality where Adam can look normal through a medical procedure. Acceptance, especially in this case, can be difficult, and Edward ultimately can't. When he falls in love with his neighbor Ingrid, he grows jealous of the other men in her life living his dream, while his loneliness consumes him. While he goes through with the procedure, he realizes it doesn't solve his problems as he spirals deeper into madness. The film ends a bit bizarrely, and I don't quite understand the point of it, but it doesn't really take away from the purpose of the film. career best performance from Sebastian Stan really elevates the film for me. Overall, solid movie. As a 21-year-old grown man, I, believe it or not, used to be a teenager. I may not understand these Kai Cenat phantom taxes or these skibidi toilet shenanigans, but I do understand those years when you're trying to find your place in everything. A time when you feel the world is out to get you and you feel insignificant. Didi is a film I think most people will be able to relate to because of this, following a 13-year-old kid named Wang Wang as he moves up into high school. Those feelings of familiarity linger during the duration of the film, reminders of excitement and joy, but also nervousness and anxiety. Being the summer, we see him hanging out with friends and worrying about girls, a typical summer for the boys. But things start to complicate themselves as the people in his life change. With time, they hang out less often as their priorities begin to shift and they become more self-centered. In general, this is a film about change. Change in appearance, change in behavior, change in perspective. It's arguably the most important year in a kid's development. It's when you begin to develop that individuality and start to rely less on your parents. This is also, however, when your stresses tend to boil over as you navigate balancing your relationships with your family and friends, along with your schoolwork and academics. You'll grow to doubt yourself and everyone else, but not because of what's actually happening. At least, not always. Undoubtedly, there are points where his friends wrong him and betray that trust, but there are so many times when Wang Wang himself is the one who's being arrogant and stubborn, whether it be speaking poorly behind his mother's back or being petty and holding grudges against his friends. Most of the film, I felt more sympathy for the people around him rather than Wang himself. He's a lot like that stereotypical angsty teen that listens to Creep by Radiohead. But in that place of hate and distress is a yearning to be understood and seen that's being stuffed deep inside him with this artificial persona he pushes to others, as he tries fitting into other groups by becoming someone he's not, and in the end, it hurts him. With a tighter screenplay, more purposeful cinematography, and stronger performances, this could have been one of the best coming-of-age films of the decade, but it nonetheless serves as a fun, well-made film that everyone should watch and enjoy. And remember, always love your mom.
Don't come to my house or else I'll suck your dick, blood. I'll suck your blood.
Nosferatu is a story I'm fairly familiar with. It's an iconic story that stood the test of time, especially with the iconic 1922 film. Me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it. The influence of it is still felt to this day with its revolutionary cinematography, but it's also still a product of its time. The absence of any dialogue severely hurts the watchability for me, as well as the theatrical, more accentuated acting. The 1979 adaptation by Werner Herzog was an improvement, but I felt it was missing some of the charm the original had. By all means, this is perfect for Robert Eggers' style. It almost feels like, in a sense, that his career has been building up for this film. The Witch showed his potential with some awesome cinematography and gripping performances. The Lighthouse built off those strengths to become a true masterpiece, and The Northman proved that these two films weren't flukes. Even with only 3 theatrical releases, he's shown he's a director worth supporting, so it's no surprise Nosferatu is no exception. The world Eggers created is deeply engrossing. Every corner of every street feels so realized and lived in, thanks to the unbelievable set design and incredibly well-written screenplay. Cinematography is, as expected, absolutely stunning. When Count Orlok's shadow looms over the bumbling streets of Visburg, it gives the impression his presence is always felt by the characters, almost like he's this unescapable terror, and that's communicated directly through the shot composition. Lily Rose Depp, Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult all gave career-best performances, while Willem Dafoe, Ralph Ineson, and Emma Corrin played their parts beautifully. By all means, every technical aspect of the film is spot on. Some weak pacing, an over-reliance on cheap jump scares, and an abrupt ending really bogged down the film for me, but I still thoroughly enjoyed this featuring the creature. Then again, SpongeBob isn't in this, so is there really any point in watching it? Remember when I said Love Lies Bleeding was the best love story of 2024? Well, call me LeBron, the King, You Are My Sunshine, James, because Challengers was actually the best of the year. Going into the film, I was completely expecting the typical love triangle plotline, along with some tennis matches, but boy oh boy was I so wrong. This film shows what would happen if all three members of a love triangle were homewreckers and morally wrong people, while using tennis as a vehicle for these relationships, making for the most engaging and entertaining film of the year. The cinematography is the highlight of this film. So many shots had me like this. Luca Guadagnino's films have always had great cinematography, but never have any of them felt like this. The way the camera constantly moves is so energetic and fast, much like the pacing. I was a bit unsure of the frequent switches between the past and present, but it now makes so much more sense and is why you're always on the edge of your seat. At the film's heart are the characters and performances, with Zendaya being the clear standout. Tashi Duncan is just such an interesting character, in large part because of her relationships with Art and Patrick. Power she has over them, especially Art, creates such a fun dynamic to watch. Coupled with the year's best score, you get the most entertaining film of 2024. Snails are very interesting critters, spending most of their time looking for food and mates. Whenever they're not doing these, they just hide in their shells. They're very antisocial animals. Although they may shell up in groups, they have no way of communicating with one another. By all means, living as a snail would probably be quite monotonous and lonely, creating a path to depression. Memoir of a Snail entails a woman named Grace Puddle as she looks back on both her life decisions and tragedies. It's a very understated film. Much like the small gastropod, it's a slow burner, one that relies on her emotions, but not ones that should be misconstrued as insignificant. The feelings Grace feels are real and shouldn't be disregarded. Loneliness, depression, grief, all of these are the common themes of her life, but the most important one is insecurity. Out of the list, this is the film I related to the most. Loneliness is a feeling so universal and understandable. Like a snail, Grace hides in a shell of her own, sheltering herself away from the world around her to cope with her past traumas. Yet it's because of this isolation that causes her sadness. She just doesn't realize this. While there are moments in her memoir where she looks at her life with pride and joy, more often than not, it's out of self-pity and shame, constantly criticizing herself. An upbringing without a mother and later without a father separated her from her brother, undeniably stunting her development as an individual. The lack of a proper parental figure or any sense of family is what leads her to a self-destructive life of hoarding, gluttony, and stealing. But it's through her unbridled hope for herself and others she learns to accept herself for her unusual features. Strong vocal performances from Sarah Snook and Jackie Weaver enhance this film, adding nuances and complexities into already complex characters. With its beautiful stop-motion animation, thoughtful themes, and emotional ending, I love this film dearly and would recommend it to anyone. Shout out to all the Turbo fans out there.
Because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
Modern day classic is the most common word I've seen used to describe The Brutalist, Brady Corbett's latest film. Normally, I don't trust these kinds of comments like, Mufasa is not the #1 movie in the world. Stop it. However, this film felt different, especially because of the trailers. Watching it in theaters, I can kinda see where critics are coming from. If the first 10 minutes were an indication of anything, this was going to be one of the best American epics ever made. Actually, this is an understatement because it wasn't just the first 10 minutes, it was the entire first half of the film. It was just absolutely perfect for me. A flawless cinematic experience, if you will. I was blown away by everything. The cinematography, the performances, and my god, the music. The recurring theme Overture is so beautifully done and undoubtedly enhances the grandness of the film. Goosebumps were literally all over my body. It truly was a magical experience. It offers a glimpse into the struggles of the immigrant experience in the 40s, 50s America, one dominated by racism. The feeling of being unwanted is a common theme in Laszlo's time in America. Constantly he's being ridiculed and judged by the American people, whether it be his cousin's wife or even a simple church giving food to the poor. The important part of this, however, is it's not a black and white portrayal. There's a certain nuance in how it's presented in the film. Undoubtedly, this is Adrien Brody's best performance since his Oscar-winning performance in The Pianist. Guy Pearce gives the best performance of his career, and the two should both get nominations and win at the Oscars. The dynamic relationship between their two characters, Laszlo and Harrison Van Buren, can only be described by what the latter says, dog and master. It's an artificial, uneven relationship disguised as a collaborative, harmonious partnership, reflecting the unjust power dynamics and the blatant exploitation present during the time. The second half of the film unfortunately marks a departure from the brilliant first half, dragging down the film's quality. While the technicalities of the film still hold up, the narrative suffers noticeably, with a very, very confusing choice of ending on Courbet's part. Funnily enough, for a 3-hour and 35-minute film, I felt it should have been longer to build on the ideas and plotlines the end of the second part introduced. It feels very inconclusive in that sense. Given this is the latest film I've seen for the list, my opinions now may not reflect my true feelings for the film. Perhaps this will be another one of those films I'll later see as a masterpiece, but for now, it feels like a missed opportunity for a true classic. Nonetheless, I thoroughly enjoyed the film, and who knows, maybe my issues now will be rectified with a second watch, and I'll finally see The Brutalist for the masterpiece others see it as.
Double fucking overtime! What the fuck, baby? New York is fucking back!
Sean Baker is a director that I find difficult to understand. Back in 2017, Florida Project was my introduction to his work, and it was the last film I saw from him. I was just very confused, especially by that ending, so I brushed the film aside for some of the other heavy hitters that came out that year. Going into Anora, I was a bit worried I wouldn't like this one too. Thankfully, however, this one clicked. Like his other films, the sex industry is the focal point of discussion, specifically the way society perceives the women who work in it, and most importantly, how these women see themselves as individuals. Annie, for most of the film, feels like that stereotypical, arrogant, cocky stripper that are present in many films, but as it progresses, the complexities of her character become ever more visible through the bizarre circumstances she finds herself in. The way sex is portrayed in this film is one of profoundness and honesty. I'm reminded of certain people chastised by the media and society with this film. Looking at these stories at their surface undermines the complexity of these issues, creating those false narratives and impressions. What Anora argues is that these sex workers, at the end of the day, are still people with real emotions, yet we as a society choose to ignore this and treat them as objects and transactions. It, in a sense, amplifies how the over-sexualization of women has become normalized in our society, how the act of sex is now as common as going to the grocery store or taking a shower. The nuanced and brilliant performance by Mikey Madison is the greatest feat of this film. Not only is it a powerful, emotional portrayal of this character, but she acts as the perfect vessel for the film's themes and messages, and as someone who's familiar with New Yorkers, it hilariously replicates the arrogance and stubbornness they have to a T. Everyone who played the Russians were perfectly cast and hilarious. Vache Tovmasyan being my personal favorite, but that's not to discredit the other amazing actors. I feel that with time, Anora will be seen as a classic, in vein of films like Boogie Nights and Eyes Wide Shut. It is 100% one that I will revisit, and who knows, maybe I'll finally understand his earlier work and see their true worth and value.
People continually say, I can't draw a straight line. I don't have the talent, Bob, to do what you're doing. That's baloney. Talent is a pursued interest. In other words, anything that you're willing to practice, you can do. And this is no exception.
I already have a review for this film, so I'll keep it short. Look Back opened feelings in me that had been shelled in for a long time. It reminded me of my past passions for art and inspired me to push forward in them to make my dreams a reality. It's an unbelievably important film to me, and it's one that I'll remember for years to come. So please, if you haven't already, check this film out. You'll be doing yourself a disservice if you don't.
This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
How do you view yourself? Can you find pride in your achievements? When you look in the mirror, do you see a beautiful person or a hideous creature? Do you wish to be younger, more beautiful, more perfect? Do you want to be the best version of yourself? This is the substance. Everything comes from you. Everything is you. The one and only thing not to forget. You are one. You can't escape from yourself. This is the foundation of Coralie Faja's masterpiece, a film about the beauty standards for women and society's disregard for older women. A film about the dangers and consequences of drug usage. A film about corporate greed in the entertainment business. A film about imposter syndrome and our unwillingness to accept ourselves for who we are. A film about so many different things, all of which are incredibly important for us to see and understand. When the aging star Elizabeth Sparkle is replaced by a younger, more beautiful woman, she takes desperate measures to keep her status, taking the substance which promises to create exactly that, a younger, more beautiful, more perfect replica of herself. This obsession with eternal youth is rooted in her inner fears and insecurities, highlighting the general struggles and conflicts women are constantly subjected to, both from the public and crucially themselves. Demi Moore's performance is quite possibly the most gripping and visceral of the year. Even if she wins the Oscar, it won't even come close to the recognition she deserves. The struggles and insecurities we see in her character are ever more apparent because of her brilliant performance. Easily the best performance by any actor this year. This isn't to undermine Margaret Qualley, however, as she, like Demi Moore, gives a career-defining performance. Without a doubt, there are no faults in the technical aspects of this film. The cinematography enhances the disgustingness and comfortlessness the two female leading characters feel when around the male characters, which again highlights some of the several themes of the film. Every technicality directly impacts these ideas, from the sound design to the prosthetics. They all serve a purpose. In any other year, this would have been the undisputed film of the year. But unfortunately, there's one that had this spot from the very beginning. You probably already know what it is, so let's get on with it.
Yes! Get on with it!
He did it again. To put it simply, Dune Part 2 is a cinematic feat. Every problem that arose from the first film was fixed, and everything that made it special was amplified with the sequel. No theater experience has even come close to matching this one. By all means, this is a masterclass of cinema. I gotta give it to you, Paul Atreides, because you are the undeniable star of the show and elevate this film to astronomical heights. Any doubts of Timothée Chalamet portraying this character were defenestrated, dunked into the Nickelodeon slime, and tossed into the fiery depths of hell because he gave the performance of a lifetime, which is insane given his already prolific portfolio. His change in mannerisms helps separate the character into two distinct personas, Paul Atreides and the Lisan al-Gaib. His voice commands the screen, and his ability to lead the Fremen becomes all the more believable. With a cast this stacked, you'd imagine there'd be, at the very minimum, one bad performance, but incredibly, there isn't. Austin Butler surprised the hell out of me. I kinda saw him as a bit of an overrated actor, especially with all the Elvis talk, but wow, he's completely unrecognizable as Fade Rotha. Javier Bardem's Stilgar evolves into a religious zealot obsessed with the prophecies and consumed by his own religious beliefs. Rebecca Ferguson, Zendaya, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, just everyone here gives beautifully executed performances. I thought Blade Runner 2049 would be the definitive best-looking film in his filmography, but Dune Part 2 is really close. Color is used to beautiful effect, accentuating the many places and complementing the differing factions of this world. Arrakis is understandably a barren desert, so the colors are more muted, reliant on a browner palette and a very, very warm sun. The Harkonnens are run like a tyranny, so boom, a brutalist planet illuminated by a sun that removes all color. The Emperor, the overseer of all, lives comfortably in an oasis surrounded by a green paradise. The cautionary tale of Paul Atreides' rise to power exemplifies the dangerous consequences of religious extremists, specifically the misuse of religious figures. Hope is a powerful weapon, and when used corruptibly, it can prove to be fatal. It's a tragic reminder of the unfortunate exploitation of lower-class citizens and exemplifies the uneven power dynamics of the native and colonizing factions. Dune Part 2 truly feels like a once-in-a-lifetime cinematic experience, and I cannot wait to see how Villeneuve finishes the trilogy. If you haven't watched this film yet. Anyways, go watch these films for yourself, form your own opinions, and as always, thank you for watching.
This is the perfect quality for what I want to do. It's very good. Hello everybody. I'm in my bed right now because I'm a lazy bastard. I don't want to get up and record at my desk, so I'm gonna do this in my bed. And you gotta enjoy this beautiful audio quality. So overall, thank you for watching if you made it up to this point. I'm reading my notes right now. So overall, I didn't want these to be in-depth reviews of the movies. I just wanted it to be like brief thoughts. Some of them I did go deeper into because I wanted to talk about them, but most or a fair amount of the movies, especially the top ones, I think I'm going to talk about in depth another date. So that's why I wanted to keep most of them brief. I was sick when I recorded this. I still have a sore throat, so I sound very different throughout the video. I couldn't do anything about that, so you're gonna have to deal with it. So the last thing I want to talk about is that this is gonna be the last video for a while, I think. This is a very important year for me in terms of college, so I want to try my best to focus on that. And I know I said that a lot of times in my past videos, but I think I mean it for real this time. No LeBron lying or anything like that. And I am taking an art class, so maybe I'll post some stuff like that as like a community post, but I doubt it. And yeah, if I do upload something, it's probably going to be like an animation and not like a video essay or something like that, because those take a lot of time to write. So I don't know if I want to put that much time and effort into it right now. But I mean, who knows? Maybe in a month, maybe in like a week, I'll change my mind. But I'm not too sure. But yeah, that's it for this short update. Again, if you watched up to this point, you're crazy. But thank you for watching. And please be safe, be kind, love one another, and be the best version of yourself. Gracias.